Hello, guys! Welcome back to the book-tastic podcast. I'm your host, London, and if you're new to this podcast and you're wondering what's this about, what we do is each week, every Wednesday, we come on here and we talk about books and their plots and themes and moods, and we really just evaluate books and everything. So if you'd like to join us, just tune in every Wednesday and just see what we have to, talk about. So today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is I was tasked with writing a fan fiction, and a specific fan fiction about Pride and Prejudice. So where I created a fan fiction of Pride and Prejudice. So what I decided to do was I decided to create a fan fiction of what if Pride and Prejudice was based in the 1940s at the start of the war in France, and because I thought, that'd be a really great idea because I know a lot about World War II, and I thought that would be a good idea to kind of incorporate my knowledge of the war into this book, kind of mix the two together. So if you guys don't know what Pride and Prejudice is, it's a wonderful book. For me, I look at it as it is a major part of historical literature. There's so many adaptations of it, movies, TV shows, and there's so many versions of it too. And it's just such a beloved book, and that's why I decided to pick it, So we're going to start with the exposition and work our way to the resolution. Just a little bit about what the plot is, and we're not going to go very long. We're just going to go point out the main details. So to start out, Mr. Darcy, and also I decided to keep Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth's name, keep the characters the same, kind of, but just make it a totally different time era, alternate universe, basically. So basically it starts out with Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. They live in this little village in France, and they have a house and a barn, and they have their ups and downs, highs and lows, and so it starts out with Mr. Darcy. He works and he's coming back from his for his lunch break, and Elizabeth's cooking. But then once they sit down and eat their lunch, that's when a turn of events happens. Basically, they hear the trucks coming in outside the house, and they look outside the window, and they see the soldiers coming in. And people at the village are frantic. They don't know what's going on. And the soldiers are taking people to the train station. And, so Mr. Darcy grabs Elizabeth's hand, and they run out to the barn, to get away from these soldiers and hide, because during the war, a lot of people, that's what they had to do. They had to hide. Like, for example, Anne Frank, she hid in the attics, and that's what a lot of people did, because the Germans were it was very, very bad time. So they go and hide, and while they're hiding, that's when the soldiers, they're searching the whole village, and they go into the barn, and they spot Mr. Darcy, and they grab him, and they don't see Elizabeth, though. That's the thing. They don't see her because she, as soon as they left at the door, she ran. She ran across the village, so that she could stay behind. So she runs, and as soon as, the coast is clear and the trucks move out, and because they took a whole bunch of people from the village, people were frantic. They were like, what's going on, because during this time, that's what the Germans did. They invaded so many towns across Europe, and it was really a devastating time. So, the soldiers drive away. So finally, Elizabeth comes back from the other side of the village, goes into the house, grabs her jacket, gets on the bike, and she talks to her friend, and she's like, which station are they at? Which train station? And, where'd they take them? And she's like, the train, you gotta go to the train, her friend. She's like, I overheard one of the soldiers, they were speaking German, I understand German, so, you gotta go to the train. So Elizabeth, she rides to the train station because she knows exactly which one there is, because there's only one nearby. And there's hundreds of people there when she gets there. So what she does is she blends in with the crowd because there's so many people. So she blends in with the crowd. She keeps her head down. She just, because she's trying to look for Mr. Darcy, and that's when she spots him. She sees him right before he's getting ready to get on the train in this long line of people. And since it's so crowded, there's so many people, she tells him, we got to get out of here, I came back to rescue you, let's go. And he's like, what are you doing here? So he's like, what are you doing here? And so she's like, we got to go. There's an alleyway down there, that would take us by buildings and everything so that we can escape. So they run, and the soldiers, they spotted them running, and they knew that they were escaping, but they kept running, and the soldiers, couldn't, they're going too fast. So they just were like, okay, they're gone, and there was just so many people in the crowd, so they couldn't move by either. So, and they eventually do make it back to the village, and it's just, and from that day on, they knew that, the whole world is going to change, that they knew that, nothing's ever going to be the same. And, for 5 years, this war, after 1940, this war went on until 1945, and it impacted so many families, and impacted the way, things are now, and it's so devastating. So I really wanted to, incorporate this topic into, this fan fiction. But yeah, anyways, so now let's get into some questions that some of our viewers have for us. And let's see. So one person is asking, how did you develop the characters? So how I developed the characters was, like I said, I kept the original characters from Pride and Prejudice, but I just, changed their names. No, I kept their names, and I just changed the time era. That's what I really did. Another person asked, what style did you want to do? And, what style did you want to make the story about? And I really wanted it to be... That's a difficult question because, I really wanted to capture, true love and everything, and how Elizabeth, rode her bike so many miles to get to the train station to rescue Mr. Darcy, because that's how much she cared about him and everything. And, I would say, that's a difficult question. We'll leave that one. Yeah. So let's go on to the third question. How did you decide on the structure of the narrative? Was, like I said earlier, I always had a great interest in World War II. I knew a lot about it. I visited museums, and I really wanted to incorporate that because, it's so heart-wrenching when you think about, what happened during the war. And I just wanted to see what it would be like if Pride and Prejudice was this alternative, universe, and it was during this time, because, just something very different, All right, next question is, how did you contribute the setting to the story? So I really wanted to go in depth about the setting. At the beginning, I talked about, a cold breeze filled the air with sorrow, a breeze that sent a shiver down my spine. I really wanted it to describe what the air felt like, what the landscape felt like, what their small village looked like, what what Elizabeth was wearing, a pinstripe dress. I really wanted to describe, that they were eating lunch, Mr. Darcy said hello. I really wanted to describe what the setting was so that the reader could really encapsulate and get a good understanding of what the story is about, And yeah, so in our final question is, what was it? So, how similar or different was your fan fiction compared to the original text? Like I said, this is similar to, I think the first question is, I really kept, I kept the names and everything. I just changed the time periods, mainly what it was. So yeah, and I think that's all the questions that we have for today. But overall, I just, Pride and Prejudice in general is just such an iconic story, and it has really impacted people for so long, and I really wanted to take that into account when writing this, and also take into account of my knowledge about the wars and everything, and really, describe how devastating this was for people, because this actually happened to people, it was really devastating, watching, families, split up and everything, and it's just like, I really wanted to capture that into this story, so yeah, but no, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast episode. This is episode 8, and I hope you guys come back for next Wednesday, same time, and next week we'll be talking about our next story, so stay tuned, and we will talk next week. Bye, guys!